What is going on, everybody? AHS Rules back again with another video, and we're here for another wrestling fantasy booking video, and this is technically part 2. Now, you're probably wondering, what is part 1? So, AEW, this is the last AEW pay-per-view event of the year, AEW World's End, and at this event will be the conclusion of the AEW Continental Classic tournament, the first time that they're doing this. Now, I didn't want this video today to be extremely long, so I went ahead and did the Continental Classic fantasy booking in a separate video. That was part 1, technically, and you can check that video out prior to watching this one. Now, getting to the World's event, pay-per-view event, I will go ahead and say this is probably my most... controversial is a strong word to use here, but most indifferent fantasy booking than my other ones. And the main reason I say that is I feel that several of the matches and storylines I suggest going to this pay-per-view event are not what the average AEW fan would want to see, but at least I will explain myself before possibly confusing y'all once the time comes around. But here we go. Here's how I would book AEW World's End 2023, the last AEW pay-per-view event of the year. Before we get to that, I always throw this disclaimer out of the most notable names I do not have involved with the pay-per-view event, so I'll quickly go through that. First, Will Ospreay and Kota Ibushi, the two newest signings of AEW. Will Ospreay said he is not coming over and starting at AEW until 2024, and Kota Ibushi has not really had anything involved in AEW unless it involves Kenny Omega. And I have Kenny Omega involved in something else on the card that you will see later. Next, speaking of Kenny Omega, his stablemates in the Elite, the Young Bucks and Hangman Adam Page. Hangman Adam Page just had one of the craziest matches in AEW history, so I feel it is a little bit warranted that he get a break. The Young Bucks, speaking of a break, are apparently taking a break. For how long, how serious it is, I do not know, but we shall see. Next, Chris Jericho, a man I want to see take a break. And I've went on record several times in several of my AEW-related videos. I just want to see Kenny Omega back in singles competition. And spoiler alert, he will be doing that on this event. And I know that him and Chris Jericho are number one contenders for the AEW Tag Team titles. But guess what? The Young Bucks are number one contenders for the AEW Tag Team titles. And that did not mean a damn thing because they aren't anymore. Next, this one kind of hurt a little bit. La Facción Ingobernables. I possibly could have put them in the Trios title match involved on this show. Spoiler alert, there's a Trios title match on this show. But I just didn't feel it yet. And then the last two are Wardlow and Miro. They appear on AEW TV a lot more than they usually are, or usually have. But it's just like they haven't really had an actual storyline yet. They're just like, Wardlow's teased wanting to do something with MJF. And Miro is teased not wanting to be with his hot and flexible wife. Also, I could definitely see Miro in the Continental Classic. I just didn't have him in my version. So, we shall see. Now, we get to this pay-per-view event, and I have 11 matches, one on the 0 hour. I will say, I do appreciate when AEW has a lot of the matches on the 0 hour. I know some fans don't like that. But for this instance, this is such like a big-time matchup. I feel only one is really warranted. And it is a stipulation match. It is a coffin match between Darby Allin and Nick Wayne. And the funny thing is, the reason I came up and thought of this has nothing to do with Darby Allin. It has to do with Hangman Adam Page. Because I understood it, and then AEW uploaded a YouTube video itself and kind of like further cemented my thought process. But I really appreciate how Hangman Adam Page is kind of, I guess you could say, the master of the Texas Death Match, because he's been involved in 4 of them in AEW history with Lance Archer, Adam Cole, Jon Moxley, and Swerve Strickland. Now, it does not help that he lost the last one, but he's still involved with that. And so it had me thinking, are there any other like wrestlers in AEW that are like the masters, or just like whenever they have a certain stipulation match set out, involved in it? The only 2 that I really could think of are Bryan Danielson in 2 out of 3 Falls matches, and then the obvious one with Darby Allin And the coffin match, we haven't really seen the proper matchup between Darby Allin and Nick Wayne, since Nick Wayne turned on Darby Allin at Wrestle Dream, and this could be the end to that story. That being said, there's a slight chance this story might not happen because, A, Darby Allin's shoulder is extremely injured, and if he takes time off to heal it, it is understandable. And secondly, I saw somewhere that he is training to climb Mount Everest, and there he might be taking time off from AEW. So if it happens, it happens. But now we move on to the main card. First matchup, a trios matchup of the Bullet Club Gold versus the Blackpool Combat Club, Jay White and the Guns versus John Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta. John Moxley and Jay White at Full Gear came off devastating title losses, and you definitely have to question how will they be able to recover from that. But my main story for this matchup is in my opinion, the two top factions in AEW. Let's settle the score and see who the better faction is. And I will say this as well, and it actually is a little bit funny. Almost every AEW fantasy booking, I have this storyline involved in some capacity. At one point, it was Bullet Club Gold and the Elite. One point, it was the United Empire and the Blackpool Combat Club, but we just yet to cross that route. And AEW has several factions, where with this one, I feel, even if they went the Jay White versus John Moxley route, I would enjoy that as well. But I'm trying to get a lot of people involved in this pay-per-view event, and this gets 4 other worthy competitors in the Guns, Claudio and Wheeler Yuta, involved. Next is another tag team bout, and anytime I talk about AEW, I always go on a spiel about not really liking the AEW women's division. Now, I will say this. It is improving. I was going to say slightly improving, but I'll just say improving in general, because we're getting new competitors in the women's division, and we're getting storylines in the women's division, where for the longest time, it was just either open challenge matches or just number one contender matches, and I just got burnt out on it, in my opinion. That being said, my main complaint is still there's not really any worthy contenders for the AEW Women's Championship that we haven't seen a new matchup from, because like I just said, we've seen so many open challenges and number one contenders matches that it's just like there's not enough women on the roster to do so. So I do not have a women's title match involved on here, but yet the women's champion will be competing in a tag team bout with her new protege. So Toni Storm and the debuting Mariah May, who is yet to have a match in AEW, versus Hikaru Shida and a mystery partner that I suggest be Riho. Because like I said, anytime I go when I do these AEW fantasy bookings, I always go on the roster, and I always go to the women's roster, and I always like, where the hell is so-and-so and so-and-so? And the most notable one is always Riho, the first ever AEW Women's Champion. I have no clue where she's at. AEW-wise, they never explain it. If she's off on excursion, that is fair, but Hikaru Shida needs backup, and I feel Riho makes the most sense to back her up in this. But I will not lie, I wouldn't be that surprised if we get Toni Storm, Hikaru Shida again. Now, I know I was just complaining we keep seeing the same matches over and over again. This time around, this next matchup is warranted, though. For the TBS Championship, the new champion Julia Hart versus Chris Statlander. We saw this matchup take place at Wrestle Dream, with Statlander retaining her championship, and then we saw a kind of iteration of this match at Full Gear, but Sky Blue was involved, and guess what? Chris Statlander lost her championship without even being pinned. And in my opinion, the champion has always warranted a rematch. I know in AEW, sometimes that is not the case, but I feel Statlander had a very good title reign. It would be nice if she did get that rematch. And we got that conclusive end to the Julia Hart, Chris Statlander story. That being said, I would suggest this being a stipulation match, but I don't know which one to do. I would like if they did a steel cage match, but that might be a little bit too crazy, so any stipulation match I feel would do. Next, this is a match that I would really like to see take place, and if it doesn't take place at World's End, some point in 2024, or even we got a month left in 2023, at some point 2023, for the FTW Championship, Hook versus Mike Santana. Now, the last couple of AEW fantasy bookings, when I do the disclaimer at the beginning of notable names not involved on the show, I've named Mike Santana because he had recently returned, and I've always been a fan of his. But he was having his feud with his former tag team partner, Ortiz, which I would say is concluded because Ortiz, and they haven't interacted since their matchup that they had. But I feel there's been little to no presence of Mike Santana involved on AEW. And hey, let's get him involved in some championship action. And I feel that he's right down the alley. When we see these FTW matchups take place, they're normally the underutilized talent. And I feel with like previous FTW title matches that I remember one specifically with Lee Moriarty. And it's just kind of like, yeah, I just feel Hook's winning this. Or with Hook, Mike Santana, like I said, he's just now a singles wrestler, kind of on a roll now. This would be a 50-50 match on who would leave this matchup as the FTW champion. That being said, I've also suggested Hook versus Wheeler Yuta a handful of times over the past couple of videos, and that match is yet to take place, but I feel that they've teased it too much that it should happen, and if not, why the hell are you teasing it so much? Next, for the TNT Championship, Christian Cage versus his lifelong friend, Adam Copeland, a.k.a. Edge. Adam Copeland has said he doesn't want to face Christian Cage, even though he just faced him technically in the 6-man tag match. I feel this is also a great way if we're to put this championship on Adam Copeland. I've enjoyed this Christian Cage title reign. If we're to put this championship on Adam Copeland, it's kind of an easy setup to get some of these newer AEW dream matchups for Adam Copeland while he is there, because Adam Copeland came into AEW and he just, like, all these, like, matchups you would say were dream matchups for Adam Copeland haven't take place. He faced Luchasaurus, and then he's been stuck in tag team matchups. So this kind of might be the wrap-up of the Christian Cage storyline, while also setting up Adam Copeland versus the future and current crop of AEW matchups that we would like to see. Also, I did suggest this match at Full Gear, and then I also said I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the 6-man match, which is the matchup that actually ended up happening. Speaking of 6-man matchups, the Trios Championship match, The Acclaimed and Billy Gunn versus a trio that I feel is very liked, but y'all would probably be upset at me suggesting them getting a title match. That being Konosuke Takeshita, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Kyle Fletcher. Why are you probably upset? I feel a lot of the majority of AEW fans want to see Takeshita in singles competition. It is understandable. And I just feel they're a very established trio. I kind of want the Don Callis family away from Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega, which I think that we might, but then Don Callis was on commentary for Kenny Omega's Chris Jericho's tag team title match, or tag team match at Full Gear, so I don't know. I'm just hoping that they're away from them. And so it's just kind of giving the Don Callis family a different direction to go to, and I don't know why they wouldn't want championship gold. I also feel this might be a more liked match if I suggested Konosuke Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher, and Mark Davis versus them. And then we have Powerhouse Hobbs involved in singles competition in some capacity, maybe against No More BS Paul White, considering he slammed Paul White on the hood of a car. And if I was Paul White, I would be wanting some redemption for that. So maybe we can get that. But I don't think Mark Davis is an official member of the Don Callis family. It is what it is. But I also think that Takeshita Aussie Open trio goes crazy. It goes crazy. Also, you can involve Will Ospreay, but like I said, he ain't coming over until 2024. Next, for the Tag Team Championships, Absolute Ricky Starks and Big Bill versus Malachi Black and Brody King, Kings of the Black Throne. I will say, the main reason I thought of this matchup is I feel on paper they're very even. The leaders of the group and then the big guys of the group, and we saw the tease in the ladder match of Big Bill and Brody King, and I just feel that Kings of the Black Throne, out of the 4 teams or out of the other 3 teams involved, not counting Big Bill and Ricky Starks, I'd like to see like the spin-off into a 2-on-2 tag team match take place. But the main reason I did think of this matchup is because of Julia Hart, and how Julia Hart is always saying, hey, the house always wins. And it is just, hilarious that at Full Gear, only she won. Now, she did leave with a championship, but Buddy Matthews lost his match, and the Kings of the Black Throne lost their match. So maybe this time around, Kings of the Black Throne could win. But I wouldn't mind seeing the Ricky Starks, Big Bill tag team title reign continue. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this might be a little controversial, but I at least will explain my thought process. For the ROH tag team titles, Better Than You Bebe versus FTR. Now, I feel the controversial take and problem with this is that AEW fans want to see MJF defend the AEW World title. They kind of are over him being involved with the ROH tag team title. Understandable. And I'm pretty sure that World's End is involved in MJF's hometown, so that would really be fitting to have an AEW World title match take place there. But there are several factors. A, the main reason I suggested this match is because of FTR. FTR, I feel, are too big of names to not have involved on a show. I kind of am over them in the AEW tag team title division. Last year, they lost the Ring of Honor tag team titles and then never looked back to reclaim them. And like I said, it kind of, in my opinion, would make sense if they went after the Ring of Honor tag team titles, because guess what? They've defeated Better Than You Bebe before. So they can reclaim gold that they lost and never looked back to get, where with the AEW tag team titles, they just lost them, but just were involved in an AEW tag team title match. And for Better Than You Bebe, hey, we lost to these guys before. Let's get redemption for losing to these guys when they got their AEW tag team title match earlier this year. And also, this is where it gets a little bit diversive. The main issue that Full Gear had was no involvement of the Devil, and a lot of people thought the Devil would be revealed. Now, I'm not going to go into like the whole lore who I think's the Devil, even though I think it's Adam Cole. But I think I've kind of came to the conclusion that, hey, whoever the hell the Devil is, they probably want MJF to stay AEW champion. That way they could take the championship off of him. And again, another main idea that I saw thrown out and flown around after Full Gear is who should be facing MJF for the AEW World Championship, and that being Swerve Strickland. I understand it. I would like to see that match as well. I feel the storyline between those two could go crazy, considering Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page just went crazy. But also, a lot of people are like, damn, they made Jay White look terrible. Damn, like, what about Jay White? I personally thought Jay White had a great chance of winning. I even predicted it in my predictions video. But now he's just not on the same level as he was. And it's going to take a little bit of time to rebuild that back up. Or Swerve Strickland, all of this year, he has been great. But this last month, and especially the performance at Full Gear, I don't want it to be all thrown away for him to not win the World Championship or to not win the World Championship, essentially. Because then it just kind of feels a little bit thrown out the window. And like I just said, I feel that the Devil, whenever they're revealed, they're going to want MJF to be the world champion. That way that person can take the championship off of them. So, that's why I suggested for the International Championship, Orange Cassidy versus Swerve Strickland. It's also very fitting that in my fantasy booking video for Full Gear, I suggested Rey Fenix versus Swerve Strickland for the International Championship, with Swerve Strickland becoming the champion. And then obviously, Rey Fenix lost the title to Orange Cassidy. That route didn't take place. But I feel that, International Championship, you can definitely make a debate about it being at the same level as... obviously, you want to be AEW World Champion, but it is as respected as the AEW World Championship. That is definitely a debate that is to be had. Also, the International Champion is almost defended every freaking week in very good matchups, and I feel Swerve Strickland would be able to fill that role, and essentially I could just repeat everything that I said in my Full Gear portion where I mentioned I wanted Swerve to be International Champion. If he becomes AEW World Champion, I ain't going to complain about it. If he doesn't become AEW World Champion, I feel there'll be a lot of negative energy involving it that I don't want to be a repeat of itself that we've just witnessed with Jay White, where I feel that energy wouldn't transmit if it was involved with the International Championship. But now we get to the main event matchup, and if you watched the video yesterday, you already know what it is. Also, this is the last point. I knew I was forgetting one. The Continental Classic finals are taking place. That is the main event matchup for my show, my fantasy booking portion. I don't know if you want to have a historic first time tournament finals take place and then also have an AEW World title match, and then the matchup that I'm suggesting I feel would overtake any matchup for the AEW World Championship. So it's probably better to opt out of even having an AEW World title match. But my Continental Classic finals, Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega 2, and I really would prefer if Bryan Danielson walked out the victor. That way we could see him once again be the Ring of Honor World Champion. So this is my last AEW fantasy booking video of the year. I think, speaking of Bryan Danielson, I think I might do a fantasy booking video down the line of dream Bryan Danielson matchups for this final countdown tour that he's on, but don't hold me to it. Next time around, next week, I'll have another fantasy booking video. This time around, my pre-Royal Rumble WrestleMania 40 fantasy booking. And then obviously once the Royal Rumble takes place in 2024, I'll have a post-Royal Rumble WrestleMania fantasy booking video, because I have not done a WWE fantasy booking video in a minute. So let me know what you want to see take place at World's End. Check out the How I Would Book Continental Classic video. That way there's a little bit more context involved in some things I said here. You just checked out this video. Check out Shooting the Breeze, taking place tomorrow, special Wednesday edition of it. Thursday is when I'll be uploading my weekly Packers franchise video. It is already filmed. It's already saved. It's just going to get uploaded on Thursday. And then Friday, more than likely, will be my weekly ROH TV review. The only thing that would really get in the way is holiday stuff, which I don't think shall be the case, but we shall see. So like I said, thank you for watching. Have a safe holiday break. Like and subscribe. Stay safe. And I'll see you in the next video.